Hey everybody, it's Stock Picks by Tim, and we've got Bitcoin right now just rallying. I mean, look at these beautiful candles here. Now, we do have just a little bit of red coming in now, but it's nice to see us break 40 finally, and our next resistance is going to be this 42 level. I'd see this 42 level. If we can break that, we're off to the races. But I do think that this move, this is going to be our move for the day. I think we're going to find a little choppiness, maybe trade a little sideways, but we'll see where that goes. And of course, this also caused CleanSpark to run. But just be aware that when you look at Bitcoin, we are overbought on the RSI, and the MACD is getting very, very toppy. But we do have a lot of nice volume coming in. So that's great to see Bitcoin finally running. And we're going to look over CleanSpark, though. The main focus in this video is going to be CleanSpark, but just thought I'd go over Bitcoin because, of course, what Bitcoin's doing is going to affect CleanSpark heavily. So we're going to look over CleanSpark, though, and I'm going to give you my expectations for the next quarter and whereabouts I expect bare minimum our revenue to be. And then we're also going to go over a couple more things regarding the halving and just my thoughts there moving forwards on CleanSpark, what I expect in 2024, which is going to be the next halving event. And I'll leave you guys a couple of links below so you can look through this yourself and get more familiar with what a halving actually is. Now, Bitcoin halving, I'll read this word for word here. Bitcoin halving is an event where the reward for mining new Bitcoin is cut in half. So when the miners are mining Bitcoin blocks, their rewards are going to be cut in half, meaning that the difficulty is going to be twice as much. So, and people are worried that, okay, during the next halving, CleanSpark's going to be mining less Bitcoin. And while this is likely going to be true, okay, but you have to also think about what's the price of Bitcoin going to be then? What's the price of Bitcoin going to be? You can actually see here we have a nice little chart. It is a bit out of date. We're here in 2022, but you'll see that every halving, so this is when the halving starts. We have a nice run, and we also have a run leading up to the halving, sometimes a little bit of a drop and then a run. But once we get to that middle point, in between, which that's right where we're at, surprisingly. We're at 2022, so we are at the middle. So we are in between the next halving, and that is why I think Bitcoin is coming down quite a bit. And to me, it's still showing a lot of strength. To see that we only got to the 30s, we only lost about 50%, 60% of our gains. And I think Bitcoin's looking really good. When you look at this, you'll see that we just blast off after the halving. Usually have a nice little run up beforehand, although we didn't really run up too much this time. You'll notice though that there's a period where it kind of drops. So you look at large downturn or large drawdown, market bottoms. Okay, large drawdown, market bottoms, and we are at this point here. I think this is a little bit out of date, obviously, but I think that's where we're at now, in that $30,000 range. So I really do expect, and this is why, you got to kind of go with the whole Bitcoin in cycles, because it is all based on the halving, and that's kind of a supply and demand thing. When you think about the difficulty going up, when you think about what's being mined getting cut in half because difficulty is going to be going up, and we're just talking about right now, of course, in the future, there's going to be more and more miners, I expect, and more Bitcoin being mined, more people entering the space. But of course, that halving is still going to affect it. So one thing you got to think about is as long as demand continues, as halvings come through, that's what causes this spike in demand. Or not a spike in demand necessarily, but we get a drop in supply leading to that demand crunch where it just brings that price up. So I'm being patient. We're right in the middle. I mean, if we look through history, you know what's coming up. By 2024, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin in the six-figure area, at least pushing 68, breaking those previous highs. And one thing to think about is, just because the difficulty for CleanSpark or, pick any miner under the sun, just because the difficulty will be twice as much. Now, this is regardless of, side note, this is regardless of what CleanSpark, how many more miners they acquire. Maybe by the end of this year, they get to where they are at 3 to 4 exahash. And maybe they have double the amount of miners they currently have. They get that immersion cooling going, making even more profitable Bitcoin. One thing to think about is, by the time that next halving is, sure, CleanSpark might be mining half as much as they are now, theoretically. But what's the price of Bitcoin going to be then? If you're talking about double the price of Bitcoin, but twice the difficulty, it's basically a wash, So that's one thing to think about. So for those of you that are thinking about getting out of CleanSpark towards the end, towards the next halving, you might want to hold through it. I mean, if you believe in the company and it's a good company and they're making the right moves, we are now profitable. And we're going to look over a couple of numbers here in a second. you know, sometimes you just gotta go with what you know and you gotta run with it. Now we're gonna go over CleanSpark's chart real quick, and then we're gonna go over a little bit of math and my thoughts on the next earnings, which is gonna be a while from now, but still something to think about. Now you'll see that we've got just a huge breakout, and we need to break this $11 level and hold. You'll see that we did kind of bounce around it here. We are having resistance. You'll notice we find this as a resistance level. Same with this, and we weren't able to break it. So I want to see CleanSpark break 11, and then we can likely break some higher levels, but we do need to break 11 first, so keep an eye on that critical level. But looking at it, same with Bitcoin, RSI is becoming a little bit overbought. MACD still pointing up, looking pretty bullish. Looks like it might be ready to cool down at some point though. And you know, same thing here. We are holding over the candles, looking quite bullish. So it is nice to look at the day-to-day. I am long-term on CleanSpark, but I do enjoy looking short-term and kind of seeing what's going on with the chart. So for those of you that are short-term, you know, CleanSpark is looking quite bullish. But just be aware that we have been on a nice little run today. We could pull back soon. Of course, the market could just turn around by the end of the day. A lot of people were expecting a lot of red because futures were down. But sometimes the market can be unpredictable, and that's the whole game. You know, the market is very unpredictable at times. Sometimes what you expect, it's almost always the opposite. Now I'm going to pull up some numbers here for you on CleanSpark and what I expect their revenue to be. So currently they are at 10 Bitcoin per day. This is just going to be a low ball, the worst case scenario for the quarter, what I expect. So 10 Bitcoin per day times 30 days in a month. Oh, no. 10 Bitcoin per day. Let's say we're at 40,000 still. Let's say we're just at 40,000. We'll use that as a number. You're looking at 400,000 per day. Okay. And this is just revenue. We're not talking about the cost, because if you take the cost of each Bitcoin, they're more like 35,000 per Bitcoin that they're actually making as a net gain. Let's say just the revenue only, and we're completely ignoring their actual operating costs, cost to mine Bitcoin, all that kind of stuff. So we're looking at 400,000 per day times a month. You're looking at 12 million times 3 months and a quarter, right? So you're looking at $36 million. This is completely regardless of their energy side of things. So I think it's pretty reasonable to say that their energy side of things could be anywhere from 4 to 8 million. That would be my expectation. So when you add that, you know, you're talking about let's just say add another 6 million. You're talking about $42 million. And that's a very low ball answer. That's a very low ball. I mean, I'd expect them to be at a higher amount. Let's say by the end of this quarter coming up here that they're at 12 Bitcoin mined. So let's just say an average of 11 per day, because right now they're at 10. Maybe by the end of this quarter they're at 12. Let's call it an average of 11. Although I still think that's lowballing it. But let's do that. 11 times 40,000. Easy stuff. You're talking about 440,000 per day times a month. 13,200,000 and times 3 months and a quarter, you're talking about 39,600,000. So when you add their potential energy side of things and their Bitcoin mining, I'd expect at least 43,600,000. Now, when you look at their previous numbers, the revenue is 41,200,000. Okay, so that is going to be beating the previous quarter. And one thing to take note of, keep an eye on this page. I will give you guys a link, or even just check out their Facebook from time to time. They do post it there, but they're going to give their February Bitcoin production. Now, their January one came out on February 3, so I think it's pretty safe to say March 3, March 2, 3, or 4, we might see some February numbers, and we're going to know where they're at in terms of their current exahash. We're going to know what kind of Bitcoin they're mining per day, so that's very important. And we're also going to know what they've been doing with their Bitcoin. Now, last time, we'll look at this just really quick. Now, last time they did sell a lot of their Bitcoin at 41,000. So far that looks like the right decision, because we are currently under that price. I think we can quickly break that 41,000. And yeah, I'm curious to see if they actually sold any of their Bitcoin when it was in the 30s. So definitely keep an eye on that. And like I said, March 3, so just a couple days from now, we will likely get some numbers, a more updated information there. So that can even give us some better information for what we expect for the next quarter. And one more thing before I go is I wanted to just show you guys a couple of numbers here. We're talking about a forward PE under 10. This is just fantastic. And we're also talking about a price to sales of 3.65, which, you know, for a growth company, I think that's amazing. All right. Anything under 2 is typically good. Anything under 1 is excellent. But, you know, when you're thinking about this, it's a growth company. We're going to continue to grow that revenue, and we are hopefully going to continue to be profitable. Okay, I hope that things don't turn around and we all of a sudden miss our EPS and have a negative EPS next quarter, but we'll see where that goes. And another thing to look at is price to book is at a solid 1, which is very, very fair. But that's basically it for you guys. Does look like we're catching a little bit of resistance here at that 1050 level. Like I said, we need to break 11 and then it's off to the races. But that's all I got for you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm going to be putting out a Lucid video tonight about their earnings coming up here after hours. So stay tuned for that. And thanks as always, guys. See you next time.